Welcome. Sorry, I was just sharing the link. But, well, it's 11:31, so I think we can get started now. Good morning, everyone. My name is Kim. I teach upholstery and furniture restoration, and I also create my own projects, and I also take on clients. I go live on Tuesdays here on TikTok, as many Tuesdays as I can. It's not yet consistent every 100% of all Tuesdays, but pretty much every Tuesday here on TikTok to show you a little bit about upholstery or furniture restoration on whatever project I am working on at the time. So this morning I'm going to be working on this mid-century dining chair right behind me. It has a hole, as you can see, in the caning, and I can either replace the caning or I can remove it and replace it with foam and fabric, which is exactly what I'm going to do because I actually don't know how to do caning. While I am here, if you guys have questions, go ahead and put them in the comments. I am not looking at the screen the entire time, so I can't read off the comments as they come, but I pause between different skills that I'm showing you to go through and answer those questions. If you can't stick around for the whole thing and you didn't know if you got your question answered, you can tune into the live replay over on YouTube and you can find out there. I'll try to give you as much information as possible. I also have a Facebook group called the Local Upholstery Club that you can join. If you are working on a project from home and you get stuck and you're not really sure where to go, you can tag me in a post and I will help you through it. And I teach upholstery workshops 4 days a week here in Ann Arbor, Michigan. You can attend them in person or over Zoom. I teach them on Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays, and Mondays. So if you are from out of town and you want to get a really cool weekend in, you can come visit, take 4 classes. The cool thing is my classes are all buy 3, get 1 free. So you can get a 4-day weekend for $225. But they're also bring a friend free, which is going to help you get through your project faster, and it's going to build camaraderie, and you're both going to have a really good time. We have a really great time in classes. So I'm going to show you exactly what it is that we're working on here today. Let me flip this around. So this is the mid-century dining chair that we're going to be working on today. Immediately we know we're going to be replacing the upholstery on the seats, but I don't know how to do caning, so we're going to take this out and we're going to replace this with foam and batting and fabric on that. You'll be able to see the fabric from the top, and you'll also be able to see the fabric from the back. Now I recently finished a set of dining room chairs where people on Facebook and TikTok and Instagram helped me choose which fabric, and it was a pretty close call between this blue fabric and this yellow fabric right here. So because I was like torn and I didn't know which one to use, I was super excited when I found these chairs because now I get to use that fabric too on a similar sort of type of chair. I got these chairs when I purchased this table. Now I purchased this table to go with these chairs here, at least for staging purposes, so I could take pictures of them. It was super cheap. Actually, it might have been free. I think it was free. No, I think it was $30. So the $30 for the table, and it came with these chairs, but the 2 of those had the caning ripped in the back. There's another one over here. So I was heartbroken because now I couldn't, I wanted to sell this table with the other chairs, but now I couldn't because these chairs clearly are made to match it, but they need some sprucing up. So I got to kick this chair can down the road till I can find a table that better suits it, and then I'm going to just finish working on these chairs here. So today we are going to be well, from this first hour, 11:30 to 12:30, if we make it that far, we're going to be stripping apart this chair. If we have time, we might be going in, cleaning it, and fixing some of these nicks up. I don't want to redo the whole chair. It's unnecessary. The whole chair, all of the furniture appears to be in pretty great condition, but there are some scuffs and bare spots that need to be touched up. So if we have time before the break, we'll touch that up too. But the goal is to get this chair strip down in the first hour. In the second hour, when we come back at 1 p.m., we're going to be working on putting the foam and batting on the chair and on the seat. And then in the third hour, from 2:30 to 3:30, we're going to be sewing the pattern and we're going to be putting it on the chair. So if you guys don't, if you don't get to hang out for the whole entire session, that's cool. It's 4 hours. I know everybody's got jobs and things to do, but you can come back throughout the day and check, because we're going to be doing these in hour-long increments from now on. That's going to help make sure that you guys are learning as much as you can in the time that you spend on here, and to make it easier for me to edit my videos later down the road, because 4-hour videos do not like to be downloaded properly. So let's take a look at, well, let's actually, I'm going to go over, all right, we're going to start over here. This is not a great dry erase board, but here we go. So before you get started on an upholstery project or furniture restoration project, you want to like lay out all your steps and get everything prepared in advance. That way you're not piecing stuff together, running across the room. You can save a lot of time, which will save you money and help make you a higher profit if you plan out all of your steps before you get started. So that's what we're going to do here today. So we're just going to start going through everything that needs to be done to get this completed. And I'm going to put it down in these hour blocks so that you guys can see what we're going to do when. So from 11:30 to 12:30, that's where we're at now. We're going to be stripping this chair. And in order to strip this chair, we're going to need to make sure that we have all of our tools on hand, and we're going to need to make sure we know what the steps are going to be. So in order to strip this chair, first we're going to need a screwdriver because we have to remove the seat. Second, we're going to need a good staple remover because we're going to need to be able to remove the fabric from the substrate. And then we're also going to need pliers because staples tend to break off, especially on these old pieces. So we want to make sure we have a pair of pliers on hand. And then sometimes, to make the job a little bit easier, you can cut the pattern away from the substrate or the frame and use the pliers to twist and pull the staples out all at one time. We're going to see if we can do that today. Sometimes the fabric's too thin, so sometimes it doesn't work. But I'm going to try and go over some hacks today because in the hundreds of years that people have been doing upholstery, the technology for removing staples is pretty much the same. And it is definitely the worst part of this. So if you guys can stick it out with me through this hour, I plan to answer a lot of questions on the best tools for the job to take the impact off your body, to make it a speedier process, and to make it easier to get your projects out the door much faster. Because the faster you can be at this, the more profit you can make. Because I'll say one of the biggest problems in this industry that people face when they're trying to pay for these services is the lead time. And that's because there's a severe lack of skilled tradespeople in this trade. So I'm trying to teach more people how to do this so that you can pick up a lot of the opportunities that are out there. And if you guys have any questions along the way, you can just put them in the comments. So after pliers, in order to remove that material quickly, like I told you, to see if we can do that, I'm going to need a razor blade. And I'm also going to need sharp razors with that. And I keep a pack of those on me at the time, so we want to have those too. You can also put scissors down in case you don't have a razor blade. Scissors could work just as well. And I think that's it. So this is all the tools we need to get started from 11:30 to 12:30 to remove all of the material from the project before we get started with anything else. So I'm going to take this over to the table and we're going to go over what those tools are. After we go over the tools, I'm going to show you specifically how to use each one on the piece. I have a variety of staple removers because some are easier in some areas than other ones, so you'll have a chance to check out the different types of staple removers that are available and ones that make it easier to remove staples. And I also sell all of these tools on my website. So if you guys want to purchase these materials, foam, batting, tools, any of that, any upholstery supplies, you can get that right from my website. Let me flip this around. Okay, so I've sort of laid out the tools that we have here that we're going to be using. I know that I'm going to have to remove my seat from the frame, and I'm going to need a screwdriver to do that. I took a look up underneath the seat and I saw that it was a flathead screwdriver, so I have that ready to go. These are my 3 staple removers. This is C.S. Osborne, this is also C.S. Osborne, this is a 124 and this is a 120, and then this is a double rock staple remover. All 3 of these tools are super sharp, so they allow you to get under embedded staples very easily, which can sometimes be the hardest part of removing staples. But they're also ambidextrous, so they are left-handed or right-handed tools, and they are engineered, you can see these angles on all of them, to be able to lift the staple and take the impact off your body. So instead of pulling super hard, you're just lifting the staple up. And I'll tell you that going slower is best. If you don't have any of these, you can use a flathead screwdriver. And if you can sharpen the end of that flathead screwdriver, it's going to give you an easier time. If you don't have a sharp tool, you're going to find yourself spending a lot of time and energy removing staples. These are pretty expensive tools. The double rock is the cheapest of them. This is a $25 tool. These are about $50 tools, and I suppose you can get these at a dollar store, so this is probably your cheapest. But the more, I've had this for more than 6 years, so the more you invest in your tools up front, the more time, energy, and money you're going to be saving in the long run. So I do suggest you invest in at least one good tool. If I had one to pick, it would be this one right here. And they have generic versions of these. The tips tend to break off a little bit easier, and you want to avoid dropping them on the ground so that these tips don't get pointed or bent on the ground. But this is probably my most reliable tool, probably my students' most favorite tool. And then the next thing we're going to need is a pair of pliers. I use a larger pair of pliers because my hands are smaller, but I also suffer from carpal tunnel, and I think I feel arthritis coming on too. So it's really difficult for me to squeeze small things. For me, holding a larger tool like this makes it easier, takes the impact off of my hands. So I choose to use a larger pair of pliers, but you can use smaller ones if you need to as well. And then I have a nice sharp pair of scissors that are good for cutting fabric. And then this is my cutting tool, my knife. And then this is how I buy my razor blades. And this is just going to make sure that it dispenses razor blades as I need them. If you see that a razor blade is starting to get dull, then you have to change it out right away or it can destroy your fabric. And we'll go through all that as we go. But these are all of the necessary tools that I need to be able to take the materials off of this chair. So I'm going to go through here real quick to see if there's any questions. I haven't seen anything come through. Yeah, I don't see anything come through. If you guys have questions, feel free to go put them in the comments. We are going to get started now on taking this chair apart. So the first thing I want to do is turn this chair over on its belly. And if you have nice wood, it's a good idea to protect the wood with some padding, or be very careful as you turn everything over to make sure you're not dragging the wood against any surfaces. So I was very gentle with setting that down. Now it's not always going to be apparent how to get the seat off of the chair. This one I could see from the bottom that it has a substrate, which is this plywood, attached to the base, and it's screwed in through these screw holes, and that's usually the case. Sometimes you might see springs under here though, which means that the seat is actually attached to the frame, so you have to remove it from the frame. Here I can simply remove these 4 screws, and the seat is going to fall off. Important to know. So I was able to check out these screws in advance and see that they are flathead screws, or yeah, flathead screws. I'm like, one's Phillips, one's flathead. So these were flathead screws, but a lot of mistakes are made when you use the wrong sized screwdriver for the screw that you're using. A lot of these older antiques do use this flathead screw, or they'll use a number 2 Phillips head screw. So this has a really wide base, so I need a nice thick area, one that's not too wide that it won't fit in here, but one that's wide enough to go end for end on that screw so that it doesn't mess up the metal and strip out. So this feels like a really good size screwdriver for the job, and these will probably fall out when I flip this back over. Sometimes these holes are so deep that because gravity, you won't be able to like get it to come out completely until you've tipped it up, and that's the case here. I do not suggest using a drill on these because these old screws can strip easily, and a drill can be too rough. It can strip out not just the screw, but it can strip out the hole as well. And the screws can be easily replaced. You can use a modern wood screw in place of these screws. You don't have to save them, but you can easily reuse them. You just have to be gentle about how you remove everything. Ew, so we have a unused Band-Aid, thank God. No money. And you'll see that that whole seat popped right off. So this is the part that we're going to be working on from the seat, but we also have a bit on the top where the caning is to remove, because we're going to be replacing that material with fabric. So I'm going to gently tip this back up because these screws are going to fall straight down, and I want to count them. There we go, all 4. And you're going to want to put these in a container or an envelope and mark it clearly with what they go to so that you don't lose them. That being said, you can always replace them. So to access the caning, I could stand this chair up and try and reach it from the side. I'm in a tall table here, so that's not going to work out for me. So I'm just going to place it on the table like this so that I can get myself on top of it, which is going to make it easier on me to remove this material. And I'll say this is even pretty far for me to reach. So I'm going to turn this chair sideways so that I don't have to reach very far to get it. Let me get a little close here. I'm a big fan. I could listen to you all day. Love your voice. Thank you. That's such a nice thing to say. I am going to get you guys closer to what I'm doing here. And I think I can zoom in also. Okay, so let me tell you a little bit about what is going on here. So this is a sheet of cane, and now I don't know if this is done traditionally. I won't know that until I get this bead out, but this is a sheet of cane that is placed on here, and the cane and this little bead of decorative wood here is actually in a deep channel that goes around here. And those are one of the biggest pain in the ass things of upholstery if you have them, because it's difficult to remove material from these channels without scratching up the wood or messing it up. And it's also difficult to put material back on it and in it if you can't clean these channels out. So this is the kind of chair where you have to be extremely careful along the way as you're removing stuff to mitigate any damage that you might that might happen to the chair. So that's what I'm going to show you guys. Now typically this is all done in one bead, and there's a break which you can see here in the back, which is a really good place to start removing it because these two things are not attached. But there's a chip up in this corner that's actually going to make it easier for me to access because the material is pretty much missing from that area. So I think I'm going to be able to access that easier. Now, couple of tools I brought over to help me with this part is my razor blade in case I need to cut any of this out, and I brought my razors along with it. I brought this super sharp staple remover because it's easy to get under deeply embedded staples. And I brought this double rock staple remover because I find that this tool is the best tool I can use when staples are deeply embedded in a channel. It's not as sharp or as long as this tool, so when you go to remove staples in it, it's more gentle, so it does less damage to the frame. So I have both of these handy in case I need either one of them. I'm going to start with this tool because I can stab it into the side of this bamboo stuff and try and lift it that way. Another thing I'll say is you want to, one, don't stab yourself with your tool. You do put a lot of pressure on these things when you use them. So when you're starting to remove it, you want to leverage your tool not on the decorative show wood, but on the area that is not going to be shown. Like all of this is going to be covered with fabric. So now I got to try and do this left-handed. I'll also say you don't want to put too much pressure this way because if it slips, it can really turn a corner here and scratch up your whole piece. And as I'm doing that, I'm reconsidering using that tool at all because nothing here was budging. So I'm going to try to use this tool to see if it's a little bit more gentle. And I'm going to bring over a soft paper towel so that I can leverage my tool off this and not put any scratches or dents in the frame. So I'm going to use this little nubby here to dig up underneath this trim and see if I can lift it out of there. Again, I don't know how it's attached yet. Sometimes they're glued in there, sometimes it's just like the stress of the wood that holds it in there. There's a lot of different ways that this stuff is done. So I'm going to get this little nubby up under as much of that as I can get, and as I suspected, it is just gonna fall apart as we lift it. So our hopes of getting this all off in one piece have immediately been dashed. But we still want to be gentle. Now don't try and do this quickly. If you try and do it quickly, you're going to make more work for yourself later on down the road. Slow is pro. Someone told me that in class, and I've never gotten over it. So I can tell, so far it looks like I'm going to have to be digging this wood. But if I can get, and it might just be that this is the beginning that's this hard, but if I can get a stretch of it up, it might make it easier to pull out. We just want to mitigate as much damage as possible. And it just looks like it's just breaking in half. So let's go in with the knife and see if we can't use that knife to loosen it up around the edges to see if we can't get our tool a little bit deeper. And if you have questions or comments, you can go ahead and put them in the comments section. I am not looking directly at my phone, so I can't answer those questions in real time, but I do go back and take a look at them when I can. And then I also put these live replays on YouTube, so you can ask them in that comment section later on too. So I'm just going to go in as tight with a fresh blade to the inside of that crease as possible to see if I can like loosen up any adhesive, or I'm not really sure what's holding it in yet. And I'm going very slow, just like a couple of centimeters at a time, so that I don't go overboard and accidentally scratch this beautiful frame, because this is a really nice chair and I can probably get a decent amount of money for the set if I'm very, very careful. But every time I make a mistake that's irreparable or one that I don't want to take the time to do or restore, that costs me money. So I try to take my time and do it right the first time. So this isn't even getting down to the bottom of the channel. But I know once we can get some up off the bottom, we can leverage the rest underneath. Oh, here we go. Yes. And then you'll start to see exactly how thick this material is and how deep that channel goes. Oh, thank God. Whew. So you can see here, oh geez. This is it's a little over 1/4 inch thick. And now I'm able to get my hands under the whole thing and lift it all the way down. So I'm going to turn this away so you can watch that. Okay. If you guys are watching and you're learning anything, all I ask is that you tap the screen. When I remind you, you don't have to do it the whole time. As much as possible, as fast as possible, for as long as possible, so that we can get out into the ether, so that people can see exactly what it is that I do here, which is teach upholstery workshops. I teach my classes 4 days a week, on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. So you can actually come and do a whole 4-day weekend. My classes are also buy 3, get 1 free, and bring a friend free. So you can make a weekend of it and bring your bestie out, and I'll show you both how to do it. Okay, so I'm going to come back through here. I just got rid of that paper towel because there was gook. Put this paper towel back underneath. And just where it starts to get tight at the end is where I'm going to start leveraging my tool. And I'm just going to gently lift. Because I would love, oh, and other good news, there's no staples holding in this caning. It was just setting in there. There's no adhesive holding in this wood. It was probably just steamed and crammed in there, and then when everything dried out. So, I got my paper towel back here. Luckily, it's not damaging the wood either way, but you do want to make sure that you're protecting the wood, because any amount of pressure could leave a dent in it. And I want to preserve the quality so I can make more money. And I really don't want to break this stuff because of how difficult it was to get it out to begin with. It's getting tougher in the corner here. Took some concentration. I'm just going to go around the whole frame doing this. First half out. And you can see this is just kind of chilling in there. I don't see any staples at all, which is exciting because that means I don't have to dig in this area to try and get any out, which is definitely going to put this edge more at risk of being damaged. So, whew, super duper stoked about that. Now let's see if we can get this side up in one piece. And that's what we want to avoid, is pushing and scratching. So, Well, you know what? It might be easier to actually come down on this end where I can see the whole piece. Take my knife, try and loosen it. I can't really drag it, it's way too tight, but I can press it in. So both of these are too difficult to get the tool in there, and a screwdriver is too big because I'm afraid I'm going to damage the wood. So in this case, the right thing for the job might be an awl if you have one. And I have one of these. This is called a regulator. Even a long tufting needle can be helpful here. But this, I think I might be able to get. It's harder to get the leverage. But I might be able to get. Under there. Not easily. This is too long, and so it might end up breaking. Let me see if I can get it in. Oh, thank God. Okay. Only peeled up half. If we can get that other half up. At once. Right now I'm poking this underneath it because I can't really pry it, but I can get it underneath it. You can see here the tool is damaging the frame. Now these little nicks can be fixed with a little bit of gel stain. Also, it's going to get welt on here, so those might even be covered up at the end of the day. But that's the price you pay in reupholstering, is getting the previous work off without damaging it is really harder than you might think. You have to be very careful with every project. Almost there. That's a good sound. Okay. Ooh, this is actually pulling it up better than the bar was. But I'm also bending the end of my regulator, which is not good for its other versatile uses. This is good. We are on a roll. Should come out super easy too. Most of it looks like it's stuck to this trim. Now I managed to get all this off with only causing damage at the 2 points where I had to try and get it up. But a lot of times you're going to see markings all the way around the outer perimeter. Because a lot of people get very frustrated with removing staples of this type. So they get aggressive. Okay, that is only going to do so much. Oof, we did it. Hooray! Alright, I'm going to check and see if there's any new. Very calming teaching voice. That's so nice of you guys to say. Thank you so much. All right, we did it. Let me pull this off so you can see what the inside looks like. This is where we did a little bit of damage. This is what the inside of the channel looks like. I'm super happy with that. There's no staples, so I don't have to fish around in there for anything. I just got to make sure I can get all this material up. So it's already come up quite a bit on this side. I'm just going to gently start to pry it up. And that's already ripping on that side from those ends. Yeah, that's not going to work. Let's see this side. It's still stuck in there pretty good, even though it's not stable. Oh, here we go. It's just that it's not strong enough for me to pull it with all my strength without breaking. And I don't want it to break because the smaller the piece, the harder it is to remove. Oh, I'm so glad it's coming off so clean. See where some is getting left behind, so I'm going to have to go through and clean out those areas before I do anything with the chair, because that channel has to be extremely clean before I put any material back in it. Now the way this is going to look with fabric in it is that I have to first put the first layer of fabric down forward facing so that you can see that in the back. And then it's going to get the foam, batting, and another piece of fabric on the top. The only thing that goes in these channels is your last outer layer of fabric. You don't put foam in there, you don't put batting in there, you only want your fabric and your welt to go in there, because that is how you make this look really, really clean. So you do not want to put any of your other material in here. And the order that this is going to get attached is going to be facing fabric on the outside, then foam, and the foam is going to get glued. Actually, it's not going to get glued. We're going to staple it. The foam is going to get stapled here. I like that this is a nice wide base, but we also want to pay attention to the thickness here. We do not want our staples to blast out through the other side. We need staples that are long enough to go through the foam and batting. The batting we can actually probably glue. So we'll glue it so that we can avoid putting staples in there, but we'll be stapling the foam down to this area, and this can only hold so many staples, so I'm so glad there were no staples there. Let me get you guys put back up so you can see what I'm doing. So now I've got to go through and clean out these channels. And I want to do as little damage as possible, so I'm going to stick my tool in here and just kind of wiggle it around and see if it loosens however that is sticking without digging into the wood and damaging it. People will always ask me, do you have to remove all of the staples when you do this? The short answer is yes, because there's a finite amount of staples that your project can hold before it starts to become damaged. But when you're just learning how to do this, it's more important for you to get through the steps than it is for you to do everything 100% right. Because in order for you to build confidence about the thing, is you have to see the thing come to fruition. And sometimes that means you have to do that as fast as possible for your brain to be able to want to continue on to do it. I lose a lot of people in the staple removal process. So I encourage my students to go at their own pace, to learn what they want to learn from the experience, reuse materials when you can so that you can save money, because when you're learning how to do this, you do not want to be blowing all your money on expensive materials and tools that you can get later on when you start making money from doing this. The most important thing is to get good at the skill. And to get good at the skill, you need to practice a ton. And sometimes that means not doing it all the way. Like sometimes it means leave the staples in that are going to get covered up. If they're not holding down foam or batting, if they're not holding anything down that leaves a lump under fabric, then you can leave it if it's flush with the wood. Sometimes you don't want to remove a staple if it's so deeply embedded that you're going to cause more damage to the wood by removing it. So you got to make choices. Everything is not black and white. When you're learning, you can learn at your own pace, however you see fit, whatever style suits you. Well, the regulator, again, is proving to be a very useful tool. These are not glued, I don't think. I think they were steamed in here, and just the pressure of everything held it in. And they were waxed, so whatever finish was on it is also embedded into this. But essentially what we're looking for is just a nice clean channel that we can put our fabric and welting in. The cleaner this looks, the cleaner your upholstery job is going to look, because your welting will set in there nice and neat. And you won't see any wrinkles, and you won't see any material sticking out of the edges. So that's what we're going to work on. Quickness, efficiency, and a clean job. Because being very good at this is what makes the most money. You can go learn the skill and go to an upholstery shop and make $20-30 an hour, or you can do it on your own and make more money if you have made a name for yourself. And you can only do that by proof of efficacy in the work that you do. So get good at it. Be careful not to damage. Here you go. So this is looking good. There's just a couple extra pieces. Now I would call that extremely clean. Everything that's in there now is loose, so I can use an air hose to blow it out. Let me get you guys close up. Oh, you were zoomed in that whole time, I'm so sorry. So this is the channel. This is where our fabric is going to go. These are loose pieces that'll come up when I blow the air through them. But that's the goal. Nice and clean. This area we might have to work on a little bit more. It looks like it still has some of the caning stuck in there. But essentially that's that. So we've only got 15 minutes left, and we're going to use that 15 minutes to work on removing staples from the seat. So let me get that set up. This is our seat, and we are going to, here we go. Okay, so I am going to try to remove, I don't want to go too close. I'm going to try to remove this all in one go, and I don't know if that's going to be possible. I'm going to flip this blade over so I'm starting with a nice, fresh, sharp edge. like I said before, in all of the hundreds of years that people have been doing upholstery, the staple removal or nail removal process remains the same, and it's the worst part of this job. So the best, fastest way to do it, if your fabric is thick enough, is to try to remove it all in one go. And that's easier said than done. But what you need to do is release the fabric that is stapled to the seat from the fabric that is going to be removed from the seat. So I'm going to cut around this edge to make these rows of staples its own row, and I don't have to worry about this messing me up. What I'm going to do is use a pair of pliers to try and curl that up, and a lot of times that will come out all in one piece. So I'm just going to start on the edge. I'm cutting into the wood. You do not need to worry about, I'm replacing all of the foam and material on here, so I'm not worried about destroying the foam. If you are going to be reusing the foam, you'll want to be cautious of that, and you can cut right into the wood instead. But this is just going to cut this loose, and it's going to make us feel like a lot of the hard work is done, but it's a ruse. It's a ruse, because we just were able to remove the foam and fabric. Now this foam actually doesn't look like it's in very bad shape. It is still super dense. It's not turning to powder. It could easily be reused. I'm selling these though, and for if I put all new materials on them, I can get more money for it. That piece of material I can save for students or anyone who might want to reuse it. I do have a bucket of salvage materials that I have too. So the next part is going to be to try and get all of this off in one piece. Now the welt is the first layer of staples we're going to encounter. Sometimes you might also see a dust cover on here. You're going to remove the dust cover. The welt is going to be next if your chair has welt, and then there's the layer of fabric that goes underneath, and there are no other layers of material underneath that. It's just these two layers. This welt is attached here in the back, and it has it's overlapped right here, and it has a staple that's holding those two together. I'm going to use my C.S. Osborne, I think this is a 120. I'm going to go through all these. I'm going to use my C.S. Osborne 120, this is a 124, to remove these staples. Now these staplers are great because they have really sharp points, which can get under deeply embedded staples very easily. In order to do that, you want to first, when you set the staple down, is set the staple remover right next to the staple, the sharp end right next to it, and push into the substrate. That way, when you go to bend it, you're leveraged underneath the staple and it comes up easily. And I didn't have to put a lot of pressure. I don't want you to pull, and I don't want you to use your body to rip all of this off, because that takes a high impact on your body, and over time, if you're doing that over and over and over, you are going to injure yourself. This job is known for arthritis, carpal tunnel, so you have to take care of your body and you have to take the impact off of it right away. So this is the staple remover that I use to do that. Once you have it loose, you can usually twist it and it'll come out all the way. If it doesn't come out all the way, you can go in with your pair of pliers and remove it like this. The other tool that I have that my students like is the C.S. Osborne 124. Both very sharp tips on these sides. It's also angled to leverage, to lift the staple so you don't have to pull it. And so you can, it also has these little slots which catch the staple. So you can put your sharp edge in underneath the staple, lift it up. This one slips more often. And then get that staple in that little gap and twist it out. I will say that this oftentimes will pull the staple out in one piece more than the other one, but it isn't as strong. So if you have a difficult staple, it's going to slip. I like having them all on hand because I find them all to be useful for different reasons. So I'm just lifting these staples enough so that I can grab a hold of these edges with a pair of pliers. So just need them to be free of each other. Okay. And I got one more tripping me up right here. And next I have this row of fabric underneath, which also overlaps itself on the side. So I'm going to remove those staples as well. Now I showed you how to use the two C.S. Osbornes. These two I have on my website. You can purchase those directly from me and they'll ship right to your house. The other one that we went over briefly, because we thought we were going to use it in these channels, is the double rock staple remover. Now I do not have this on my website. The only place I've ever been able to find it is on Amazon, so you can look for it there. This was the first tool I bought when I Google searched how the hell do you remove staples faster. This is terrible. So this was the first thing I found, and I watched a video on how it worked, which it helps to like rock and leverage the staples out. And it's also not super sharp, so it does less damage to your material. But the problem with it is, even though it's the cheapest at 25 bucks, it goes dull really fast. So I tend to reserve this to use for when I'm doing show wood like we just did. But for the purposes of showing you how it's used, I'm going to show you right here. And I don't know how close I can get here. So these have little nubs, and each nub has a little notch on it, and these have gone kind of dull so you can't see it. When you get the nub under the staple, that little notch catches the staple and then you can pull it out. So I'm going to put that little nub under my staple. If it is deeply embedded, you're just going to put the nub into it right next to it and push down into the substrate, and then when you rock it up, it's going to come right underneath it. This one does not catch the staple good enough, especially when it starts to go dull, to pull it out all the way, but it does work really good for getting in channels. So I think I just got 2 more staples, 3 to remove from this side before we can attempt to try to take this all off in one go. So now I can grab both of these layers of fabric. And I will say, if you have a weak top layer of fabric and a stronger bottom layer, if you can do this in 2 layers, it might work better. Sometimes the fabric's so thin that it doesn't work. But now I can just grab that and I can twist, and a lot of times these staples will come up with the fabric. Now on this one, it is coming up, but it's not pulling it completely out. Let's see if I can get even closer. So I still got to go back through with my pliers and remove these, but already it has reduced the amount of work that I have to do to get this out of here. It does get difficult to twist once it starts to build up on your pliers. But that's already making a world of difference. And that's 2 layers of staples that's coming up, too. And I can probably get down a whole row before readjusting. And sometimes it might be easy to clamp this to the table. That's what we're going to do. I'm going to turn my fan on. It's getting hot in here. So if I clamp this down, it's not going to travel on me as much. There we go. So I've clamped this down so it doesn't travel on me as I do this. The more material that wraps around it, the harder it gets to twist. So you want to stop from time to time. And I use a crappy pair of scissors to trim off the excess. Now this is the case where we see some staples that are flat, they're not holding down anything, but they're deeply embedded into the wood. that you don't necessarily have to go and remove, because we're going to staple on this. We can cover it up. It's also going to get a dust cover. No one's going to see it. But this is an older wood, so digging those out might actually cause more harm than good. I'm going to remove them because I know how to do it safely, but if you guys are doing this, you don't have to jump to conclusions and remove that all the way. If you guys are here and you're learning anything, all I ask is that you tap on the screen to like this content. You don't need to send gifts. It's way more valuable to me to have you guys tapping on the screen and giving me likes, because it helps push my content through the For You page, and that's how people find out what I do. Now you can see there's a whole row of fabric here being held down by 100 million staples. So it's not working on that, it's just tearing away. Where are we at on time? We're getting close. We're going to end this at 12:30, take a break, and I'll be back at 1 p.m. to show you guys how to build this up, and this will already be ready. But I do want to show you how I go. I find it fastest, and I can't really remove staples anymore. I usually get my students to help me in exchange for free classes. But I like to lift all the staples if I'm having particular trouble with them, and then come back through and pull them all after I remove the material. So then I can get that all done in a batch process. And for me, it just feels like it goes faster. I've never timed it. I don't know if it does, but it feels like an efficient process to me. So we will go through before we come back, and I'll have all of these removed so that we can start the process of putting the foam and batting and everything on this. We're going to use this seat base, which we call a substrate, to trace the pattern to make the cushion with some 2-inch foam. Alright. Now I'm going to take some time to answer questions if you got them. Fix this up. And I can't see anything without my glasses. That's a new fun thing for me. And I don't see any questions. But I do appreciate you guys coming to this first session of my Tutorial Tuesday, which is stripping the chair. We got pretty much everything stripped. We got everything out of the back channels. We're going to replace that caning with this fabric, and this is the same fabric we're going to use on the seats. This is fabric that I wish that I had used for those other chairs, but I like the blue fabric on there too. But I needed a project to do this, and luckily the table I got for the other chairs came with these chairs. Now I have to find another table for the other chairs. But we removed the caning off of this. Everything's nice and clean, ready to receive fabric and materials. The next session is going to be at 1 p.m. and I'm going to come back here and I'm going to show you how we start attaching the foam and batting to the back and to the seat here. This will already be stripped. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and leave them in the comments section. I have just 2 minutes that I can answer any questions here, but I just want to give you my whole spiel about what it is that I do for a living. I make, sorry, I'm not bringing anybody on because if I don't know who you are, then I don't know how that works. So, my name is Kim. My business is Loco. I make custom furniture. I take my own clients and I teach upholstery to the greater Metro Detroit area and to people all over the United States, because you can not only attend my classes in person, but you can attend them over Zoom. I teach my classes 4 days a week on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, and those are 3-hour classes. My classes are buy 3, get 1 free, so it's a great thing if you're out of town, if you don't live in the Ann Arbor or Metro Detroit area. You can fly in or drive in, and a lot of people come in from out of state, and you can stay the whole weekend and you can get 4 classes for $225. Each 3-hour class is $75, and they're all bring a friend free. So you can attend it on Zoom, or you can attend it in person. You can bring your friend with you to help get you through the project. What you do is you bring your project, and I will walk you through step by step to completing it. Now, most classes take more than one project to complete, or more than one class to complete a project. If you have a specific skill that you want to learn, you can attend just one class, and I'll walk you through debug tufting or channel back upholstery, or whatever it is that you are struggling with. I can walk you through that probably in a 3-hour class. Very few projects can be started and completed in a 3-hour period, but there are a list of some of those on my website. I do have a summer camp coming up here in August 15th through the 19th, and I have 1 spot left, and I really want to fill it. So if you guys are interested in spending a 5-day, 4-night stay at the Newton of Ypsilanti here in the Ann Arbor area, then you can get your spot registered right now. So it's 5 days, 4 nights. The Newton of Ypsilanti is a restored mansion in the downtown historic Ypsilanti area, and it was previously owned by Henry Ford's lawyer. I think that was his last name was Newton. It is owned by Chef Allison Anastasio, who makes all of our meals, so all of your meals are included. All of your materials for your project are included. And then there is a field trip on Thursday night where we go to a couple fabric stores. One of the fabric stores, you can get your fabric for $10 a yard. It's pretty sweet. The other fabric store, Haberman's Fabrics, is going to talk to us about the different types of materials that we can use and how to differentiate upholstery fabrics and what projects to use them for, and different terminologies that you want to learn. And then we have special guest speakers, Nicole Crowder with Nicole Crowder Upholstery, Rhonda Shanahan with the Whimsical Chair, Wes and Jess Breitbach, I don't know if I'm saying their name, I've never heard it said out loud, with Crown Upholstery, and Sharon O'Connor with Vintique Upholstery, who is also one of the upholsterers on the show Money for Nothing with the BBC. Those are for special guest speakers. All your meals are included, all your materials are included. There's 3 8-hour days of upholstery, so you'll get a lot done in those days, and it is exhausting. But then we get to go back to the Newton, or we go out a night on the town, and we have a really good time on the second half of that. So it's sort of like a vacation, professional development, summer vacation thing. So if that's something you're interested in, I still have 1 spot left. They are a blast. I have people at every one I have had come to multiple. So it is an experience that you want to experience over and over again, but you can get a taste of that if you were to just book 4 consecutive classes with me on a Friday through Sunday, and that one's only going to cost you $225. The summer camp is literally 10 times more. So, but you get a lot with it, and you get a lot out of it. Elvis, I miss you too. We gotta get together. So I have a question here. Do you ever use leather? I do. Yep. And I vowed after the first time I used leather to never use leather again, but after practice, I got really good at it. So I suggest you figure it out. You have to practice with it though. ASAP for sure, Elvis. If you guys are really into drag, you gotta go follow Elvis. We are. Anyways, okay. I'm going to get off of here, and I'm going to see you guys back at 1 o'clock. We're going to put the foam and batting on this project, and then our last session of the day, we're going to put the fabric on it and attach it. We're going to get through this whole chair today. Will the chair you're working on have cording? Yes, it will. You'll get to learn how to sew welt on, and you'll get to learn how to make welt as trim. We're going to learn all of that today, but I got to take a break. I got to charge my phone up a little bit. I will see you guys later. To Elvis, and I saw my husband coming through here as well. He sent me text messages. So happy lunch, douche. Love you. Bye.